So, with the current slate of next generation video games and gaming software in the world right now, for a long time I've always wondered what would happen if a franchise such as Doctor Who got that kind of treatment. Now, we have of course had Doctor Who games in the past before, but on previous consoles, but I'm talking about something on the scale of Uncharted or Jedi Fallen Order, the latter of which would definitely work for a franchise like Doctor Who. Now, this is an idea that my brother and I have discussed on our own for a while and how popular it could end up being, so I've decided to pitch it to you guys and see what you think. Now, this is a big part of what a Doctor Who game has to get right, and that is the handling of the Doctor themselves. Now, because Doctor Who is more of an immersive show when it wants to be, I think a cool idea that would more than likely help sell the game is the customization of your own Doctor. My basic idea is making the customization feature very similar to the character creator in Cyberpunk 2077, where you choose how your character looks and sounds, and clothing-wise I think that should also remain in the hands of the player. Now, the game will open on the Doctor regenerating, and it's just before that cutscene you get to choose how your Doctor looks. After that cutscene plays, you'll then go to the Tardis wardrobe and you'll get to choose your own look. And while we could feature outfits from previous incarnations, which let's face it we would probably get anyway if a game like this ever happened, I think another interesting idea would be to instead feature elements of each Doctor's costume as unlockable rewards. So getting things like the 4th Doctor's scarf, the 6th Doctor's jacket, the 10th Doctor's Converse, and the 11th Doctor's bow tie. Something like that I think would work really well. But outside of that, the character of the Doctor and how they turn out would essentially be in the hands of the player. You can customise your own incarnation of the character, choose their wardrobe, and even determine the aesthetic of their equipment. And speaking of which... So, I've just talked about the player being allowed to make their own Doctor, but I want to talk about the option of customisation in more of a broader sense. Now, arguably two of the Doctor's most well-known pieces of equipment are the Tardis and the Sonic screwdriver, and similar to making your own Doctor, I think it should also be down to the player to design their own Tardis and Sonic as well. Now, my idea is that over the course of the game's main story, some side missions, and completing the game itself with 100%, you will be able to unlock new interior designs that fit to a certain aesthetic. Or we could even go down the route of the player unlocking upgrades for their Doctor's TARDIS over the course of the story, and we could quite easily do the same for the Sonic screwdriver, the latter of which would possibly be similar to the lightsaber customization in Jedi Fallen Order. I think that mechanic would work seriously well. The Sonic, I think, is just as integral as the TARDIS when you talk about Doctor Who, and much like the TARDIS, I think the option for the player to customise their own Sonic screwdriver should be heavily considered, and in addition to the player picking up some upgrades for the screwdriver in the form of blueprints, the same thing can be done for the TARDIS if need be, but that's how you should utilise the Sonic and TARDIS when talking about the game. Now, the TARDIS plays a more integral role in the game than you might think, and that's down to the style of gameplay. So the next idea is down to what method of storytelling we would get when it comes down to the game itself. We have the question of whether we can do an open world or linear game, and I think both options should be considered. Now, open world especially I think would work better for a Doctor Who game in terms of traversal of the TARDIS, but on the other hand, using a linear style of gameplay works better for storytelling. So I think the main option is to implement both into the game. For example, when the TARDIS takes you to a certain planet for the game's story, you have the option to explore the planet and pick up some collectibles, or you can just head straight into the mission. So I think it's important to have both the option to explore the world and to focus on the story itself, and leave that choice down to the player as well. Now, the story for a Doctor Who game is difficult to talk about because this would focus on a new Doctor and be entirely separate from the TV show. So essentially, this would be a different continuity with a different Doctor and a new world to explore. Now, the game will open with the Doctor once again regenerating, and you'll get to choose their look and personality beforehand. But the larger part of this game I've come up with is to leave the story up to the decision of the player. Basically, think about it in a similar manner to the Telltale games or Detroit Become Human, where there's a story to complete, but you, as your own variant of the Doctor, can make choices that impact the ending you get. Whether it's good or bad is down to the choices you make during the story. You might get a good ending, a neutral ending, or a very, very bad one. The story would see the new Doctor exploring the universe through new eyes and defeating new monsters. How this Doctor would handle the situation is up to the player, because on one hand you can quite simply destroy your enemies and stop them from coming back, or you can let them live, but you could risk them coming back in future to stop you, and your choices could come back to bite you on the arse. Now, I'll get to the villains later on, but the main focus is how your Doctor turns out. Your choices will impact which ending you get. If you make mostly good choices, then you'll get a good ending by the end of the game. But if you make mostly bad choices, then you'll get a bad ending. However, if you make equally good or bad choices, then you'll get more of a neutral ending, and this all comes at the end of the very game itself. But what would these endings be like, I hear you ask? Well, here's what I've come up with. The neutral ending would see your Doctor save the day from the villain, but at the cost of their companion leaving. The good ending would be similar to this, with the Doctor saving the day, but the companion staying with them. I used them as a pronoun, as the customization of your Doctor will also be included as the gender they regenerate into. But if you make mostly bad choices, your Doctor will be killed and the TARDIS taken by the villain or destroyed, which I'll get to in a moment. Now, the decision of companions will also be in the player's hands too, as during the story you will be given opportunities to take on a new traveller to join you on your adventures. All of them will be unique in their own way. Now, a long-standing criticism when it comes to modern Doctor Who at least, is that a majority of the companions were from modern-day Earth, bar Captain Jack, Nardole and a couple others. And so I wanted to provide the player with some variety. The game itself will be told in chapters, with each one featuring a temporary companion, and it's up to you to decide which one you will take on full time. At the end of these chapters, whenever there's a companion present, you will be given the choice to either just say goodbye and bid them farewell, or offer them an opportunity to join you on your travels. Now, the companions can also influence what choices you make in these chapters. Some will convince you to make the right choice, whilst others will do the opposite. So villains in the Doctor Who game will be very tricky to delve into, given the many villains the Doctor has faced in the past 60 odd years. However, given the game's story will be told in chapters, in a similar vein to Uncharted, I think it would be interesting for each trip in the TARDIS to span 2 chapters of the game, and then once you come to the end of the entire game itself, your choices with how you dealt with these villains will impact which ending you get. Now, my idea is to have 20 chapters within the game, and each story spanning 2 chapters will feature one classic foe. I think this part is important to mention, as we could have one writer for each story, similar to how the TV show works when you've got a showrunner and they're commissioning scripts from writers. Essentially, it would be the same situation here. Now, the villains in no particular order would be the Daleks and the Dalek Emperor, the Cybermen, the Master, Ice Warriors, Weeping Angels, Sontarans, Vashta Nerada, Zygons, the Flood, and the Meddling Monk. Now, we can have other alien races, of course. In fact, some of the companions would be alien in origin, but each story would feature an iconic Who villain, and it's up to the player as to how they're disposed of. You can either let the villains go as an act of mercy, or you can leave them in life-threatening situations. For example, the Daleks and the Cybermen, you have the option to deactivate their ship and leave them stranded in space with no power, or you can essentially just destroy their spaceship and kill them. Others like the Zygons, the Flood and the Meddling Monk, you can hand them into the Shadow Proclamation, or you can leave them trapped somewhere they cannot escape. In the case of the Monk, your Doctor has the option to choose between leaving him stranded in a specific time period, or you can basically sabotage his TARDIS and leave him stuck there for eternity. Now, the gameplay is also dependent on the choices you as the player will make. As mentioned, one of the larger mechanics in the game would you be making the right choice. Good ones will improve your Doctor, whilst bad ones will make him slightly more evil. Fighting wise, the Doctor can take either a technological approach and defeat foes with their mind, or go down the more violent route and use weapons like a sword or a gun to dispatch enemies. You can kill your foes or simply incapacitate them, and the decision is yours. Will you be the hero for the universe, or descend further and further into a rabbit hole of tyranny? The choice is in your hands. And that concludes my pitch for a Doctor Who game. Did you like it? If so, let me know in the comments below, and if you had any ideas for what you would do for a Doctor Who video game, then by all means fire away and I'll be sure to check them out in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for further videos, and be sure to stick around for future ones like this. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.